There's a light in the sky, rising in the air. There's a feeling so strong. It's time to light the fire, like a bright shining light. Learn, getting more out of life. Love, sharing time with friends, feeling so strong.
Hello, welcome to the House of Wellness. I'm Luke Darcy and happy as always to be joined by the very awesome Joe Stanley. Welcome, Joe.
Darcy, it's awesome to be with the very awesome Darcy.
Thank you.
I love it every week, especially as today we'll be focusing on one of my favourite topics, good gut health. You know I love it, Darcy.
You do, Joe. It is one of your great obsessions. Today we'll be turning ourselves inside out, literally with a bird's eye view of our stomachs, all done by taking a pill with a camera in it, would you believe?
I love this. Plus, the pandemic has seen us either exercise more than ever or spend a lot more time on the couch. Both are having a big impact on our feet.
Which one's it been for you? More exercise, more couch?
Started out more, ended up less.
Less time outdoors is also affecting vitamin D levels. Very passionate about this. And we've got the inside word on what you need to do on that front.
And we hit far north Queensland to the world of beautiful butterflies that are indulging in the caviar of the eco world, kangaroo poo. How about that, Darcy? I've got it back to gut again.
You found a way. Well, we may as well stay there, Joe, with the gut, I mean. And I think it was last year you went to the Gut Feelings interactive display at the Melbourne Museum. Is that right?
Oh, it was so fascinating strolling through 9 metres of giant intestines, Darcy. The amazing thing I learned was that the trillions of microbes each human has influence our personalities, emotions and moods, our memories and even the people and things we're attracted to. So we really are what we eat.
Yeah, and we have spoken about that link, haven't we, between the gut and our brain and our health. Now researchers in Melbourne have gone one better. They've developed a camera that's only as big as a vitamin pill that you swallow, so you can see your stomach digesting food, reacting to movement and all the things that go on in there.
It brings new meaning to a live feed. Darcy.
I got it.
See?
Yeah.
The tiny camera invention is called Inside Out and is the brainchild of Ji-Young Lee. I caught up with young Dynamo and her mentor, Floyd Mueller, to find out more. Can you explain exactly what is the Inside Out camera?
It's a novel interactive system that we designed to help you understand more about your inside, in particular your gastrointestinal tract or your digestive system.
So how does it work?
So the way it works is you take a small pill-like device that you swallow, and it's got a camera that wirelessly streams the inside of your body to the, we've got a shirt, and then we embed a display in there, and it streams that video to the outside. So, for example, if you eat different foods, you can see different food being digested, right? So green vegetable looks different than brown bread. You can see what you're drinking. Water looks different than tea. And that really engages people with what they do and how it is reflected on their inside.
Is that what you hope, that down the track it can be used to empower people to make better choices as far as what they may eat?
Exactly, yes, yeah. Not only what they eat, but also how they move. And in particular, I found that super exciting when I saw adults rediscovering what their body can do to them. It's a bit like, you know, when babies discover their feet for the first time and they start playing with their toes. Here it was adults playing with their inside body, figuring out, if this is what I'm doing, then this happens. If I eat this, this happens. If I move here, then this other thing happens. And that's what we want. We want to engage people with their bodies so they learn more about it, so they can look after it better.
Have you found that people are divided between those who really want to know what a piece of lettuce looks like inside them and those who find that a little bit confronting?
Exactly, yes, yeah. And that makes part of the fascination for some people, right? So some people rather don't want to know, but when they become curious because they see it really affects what they do on the inside, they start exploring more.
Where did the idea come from?
So that came from our PhD candidate, Ji-Young. She has been working for a long time now, trying to use new ways to engage people with their inner body. And Ji-Young has this really interesting background of having worked as a game designer. And, you know, game designers know a lot about how to engage people. I mean, you know, doctors also know how to engage people, but maybe not as much as game designers, right? So coming together, bringing that together is a really interesting way of engaging people with their health data.
And then just an awkward question. How does it leave your body once you've finished exploring your insides?
So it gets excreted at the end of the day, and it's not reusable. Like everybody asks that.
I'm relieved to hear that, I must say. Pardon the pun. So, how far away are we from using this in a more medical setting?
Not far at all. Some of these pills are already being used in endoscopy procedures. And we take the assumption that, of course, technology always gets more affordable, gets smaller too. So we can see it not only in medical settings, but also in educational settings, in schools for teaching. We can see it even in the future as pure entertainment to engage people with their inner body. But also maybe we can see it as part of food. So chefs can create new kind of interactive experiences for their customers through their dishes. But, that's really exciting work.
I understand that your background is being a game designer. Has that had an impact on you coming up with this idea?
Sure. I think first as a game designer, I know about the game technologies. The game technology evolved. At first, we played with keyboard and mouse. Then we played with joysticks, and then we played with wearables such as Apple Watch. So it's getting closer to our body. So what if it's even closer? Is it just integrated with our bodies inside? So definitely my game design background helped me to design all the gameplay around that. So it's just definitely helping me to come up with the idea.
It does feel like something from a science fiction movie in a way. Do you think that it feels a bit futuristic?
Yes, like during our user study, we asked the people how they felt. Definitely they mentioned about the picture was quite confronting at first, but they quickly understand the idea and they quickly build a connection between their body and the video shown to them, because they definitely feel they can control the video to some extent.
How big is the camera?
The capsule has the size of a vitamin pill, so I can show you here.
Ah, that looks quite big.
Yes, it's quite look like a big vitamin pill, but the people can swallow it safely.
So once you've swallowed it, you can't feel it inside you?
Actually, you can't. It just naturally passes through your body.
Where do you hope this might go someday? Where do you want this technology to go?
Maybe this imaging capsule can also be served as a daily vitamin pill, and people can take it on a daily basis. And we just, in the morning, we just take it, and then we engage with our body and play it for a whole day. And maybe this can help us keep knowing our health conditions and also enjoy our bodily play every day.
Well, Jewing, thank you so much. That is very fascinating. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, there's an opportunity, Joe. With the pressure of social media to look good on the outside, how about the snap of a perfect stomach from the inside? What do you think about that?
I love it. It could be the new thing on Instagram, Das. I don't need a washboard stomach. Have a look on the inside of me. Yeah, I like that. I think, though, I would need some pretty special filters to make sure some of the pics look a little more digestible.
Yes, I got it again. I've been wanting to launch on Instagram, Joe. Haven't got any presents. This might be it for me.
Do it.
Inside shots of the stomach coming soon. Up next, from looking inside our bodies to belching the air right out of them. Stay tuned for that. Everything you need to know about burping coming up next on the House of Wellness. Welcome back. So, Joe, if I asked you a question about eructation, how would you respond to that?
I don't quite know what that is.
Really?
I'd be a little alarmed.
Well, it's the medical term for something we all do, either politely or behind closed doors, or in public if we're shameless. It's burping.
Ah, well, I'm relieved to hear you say that, Das. In some cultures, letting out a great big belch after a meal was once seen as a compliment to the cook. In others, well, you would definitely get lots of dirty looks and maybe banished from the dinner table.
Well, I'm told it's all about releasing the inert gases from our stomachs, but Dr. Carr is the expert. Here he is to tell us why burping is a total gas.
It happens when we relax the lower esophageal sphincter, and we doctors call it eructation, but it's known to everybody else simply as burping. Yes, that thing which so many kids think is hilarious, and let's face it, some of us adults do too. And yet it's not a polite thing to do, is it? But hundreds of years ago in European society, it was considered a good thing. If you'd had a lovely meal, to let out a great big belch at the end was a sign of appreciation. I decided to try it the other day, just to show my wife how much I appreciated her cooking. Seems times have changed. But humans are not the biggest burper. That title belongs to cows. Anyone who studied music knows all cows eat grass. And that grass ferments in their stomachs to produce gas, methane. And one study in America showed that 25% of all the methane comes from cows. That's a huge amount of greenhouse gas. But we humans, we tend to produce inert gases like nitrogen and carbon dioxide. But if we have something wrong with our tummies, we can also produce methane, which is a flammable gas. And this poor guy in the UK had a methane gas produced in his tummy, and when he burped while he was lighting a cigarette, he got horrible burns on his face. Ow. Burping, of course, can be done discreetly, but it can be done loudly, and of course blokes like to compete for who can burp the loudest. And the world record is held by a man from England who's called the Burper King. And he managed a burp that was over 109 decibels. That's louder than a chainsaw. Now, not all wind comes up. Some of it goes down, and when it's further down, it can cause those tummy rumbles that we doctors call borborygmi. Isn't that a great name? Audible tummy rumble, borborygmi. And if that wind keeps going through, it can come out the other end. But we'll get to the bottom of that story another time.
Well, there's some amazing facts for you, Joe. The world record for the loudest burp, 109 decibels, more intense than a chainsaw. Can you believe that?
That is horrific. Not something I need in my life or house, thanks.
Not required from Daz?
Oh, no.
You don't deal with that?
No.
What do you mean you won't
It's
allow?
so gross. I can't stand the burping. And let me tell you, as far as from the other end, he says he has to do it or he'll die, right? So I make him leave the room.
We might have to go back to Dr. Carr for that one. I think probably Daz is probably right on that front. Moving out of the gut and down to our extremities. Up next, find out why we all have big shoes to fill when it comes to looking after our feet. Back after this. Welcome back. Today we're looking at the human body from top to toe. We've been inside the gut, busted some myths about burping, and now we're going to check in with one of the most overworked and underappreciated parts of the body, our feet, Joe.
It's reported that in a single day, the average person takes 8,000 to 10,000 steps, and probably way more than that during lockdown. Over the average lifetime, that equates to 4 trips around the world, which adds up to a lot of blisters and aching arches if you're wearing the wrong shoes.
Have you become a bit obsessed with how many steps you take now that our phones measure how many steps it
Do you count your steps every day?
Well, I tend to look at them now that I know that it's there. And so I reckon that's about right, about 10,000, probably more in lockdown.
Yes.
But 4 trips around the world, that is a lot of walking. Another thing that's come out of the pandemic is the increase in people going to podiatrists with foot complaints, probably because we are walking more.
Well, it is, I think, all of that running, or it is a lack of movement. Too much time on the couch, maybe. Here's Adelaide-based podiatrist Helen Banwell to tell us if there's any truth in the saying, if the shoe fits, then wear it. Helen, we're living in these strange times where some of us are exercising more than we ever have, and some of us, and I include myself in this, are spending a lot of time in my Ugg boots. What differences are you seeing in the kinds of foot issues are out there?
Well, exactly what you're talking about. We're seeing both ends of the spectrum. So we've got people that have suddenly started to exercise quite intensely. And in the lockdown situation, they're exercising very intensely for a short period of time and then often doing nothing in between. And then we've got the flip side, and I'm with you on this, in that I've very much made friends with my couch. So we've got overuse and underuse.
What kinds of issues are people having in their feet?
So for the overuse crowd, so people that are doing lots of high intensity exercise, again in short bursts, we're finding lots of tendon problems, even bony bruising, which can be quite severe. And unfortunately, what happens when people do a huge amount of exercise is the rear foot takes all of your weight. So people don't often realise, but when we run or even when we walk, we land on our heel at least 1.5 times our body weight. So when we're at a flat out run, and particularly if we're running downhill, we can actually land on our heel at 5 to 7 times our body weight. So that's a lot of shock going through that one little section of our body. So the shoes that we're wearing, very important, but also the way that we land on our feet and, you know, the amount of preparation we do to land on our feet can play a big part. Instead of pounding for kilometres on end, it's a good idea to just dose yourself out so that, you know, a little bit today and then a little bit more tomorrow and slowly build up to it, because too much hammering through those bones can actually cause quite severe problems.
Have you got any advice as to how to choose the right runners, particularly if we might be buying online?
Start by popping your foot onto a nice sturdy bit of paper, draw around it and have a really good measure of what you're dealing with, and then start to stalk all of the online places to see if you can at least match up those measures. And a good tip is to buy your shoes or to fit your shoes at the end of the day, because most of us find that our feet swell a little bit as the day goes on. So something that's tight in the morning is going to be uber tight come 6 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay, so let's admit how much time we're spending in our slippers and our Ugg boots. Is that really bad for us?
There is, sadly, who knew 2020 would bring about so many changes, but there is now a coined term called Ugg boot foot. And as a podiatrist, I've never heard of this before, but now I'm living it. That's what's really frightening. Ugg boots, all sorts of slippers. The one downside that they have is such a lack of support. And I'm sure you've probably noticed it yourself. It's a little bit more of an effort to walk a distance in slippers and Ugg boots than what it is to walk in nice, sturdy, you know, sort of well-fitted shoes. But the other downside, and the somewhat embarrassing downside to Ugg boot foot, is that often it comes with a slightly less than savoury side effect that we're seeing increases in tinea and bacterial infections. And there's actually a bacterial infection, technically known as pitting keratitis, but we actually call it crumpet foot because it makes the skin on your foot resemble a crumpet with all the little holes, but the holes are actually bacteria.
What would you recommend we wear around the house then?
So if you're looking for protection only, slippers are fantastic. But if you are going to be walking all day, potentially think about a slightly more sturdy version of a slipper. They do exist. You can buy slippers that have got quite good support in them, or start wearing your more comfortable shoes around the house.
What kinds of exercises can we do to strengthen our feet?
So some really easy ones are things like drawing the alphabet in the air with your foot. And I like that one because, one, we know that you're going to do it 26 times, but two, it takes your ankle through its full range of motion. And anything that puts, you know, weight through your legs and is hurled for a period of time to the point where you can start to feel that slight uncomfortable sort of lactic acid burn is going to improve your strength and stretch through that area.
Now, Jo, I know you love your running. Have you got dozens of pairs of shoes, or you just stick to a couple of favourites?
No, I buy one pair of runners a year and I stay on that runner for that year, yes. But I won't wear it walking because I don't want to waste the sponge. I feel like you only have...
your walking shoes and your runners for running.
Don't you think that your runners have a certain amount of sponge and then you lose them? Yeah. What about you? Do you have multiple
Well,
runners?
I'm not a runner these days, but I'm more of a walker after
what
I
a slouch.
knee a couple of times playing footy. But I miss it. I miss the idea of going for a run. But I'm not sort of your Imelda Marcus. One pair of runners does me for a long period of time. So who would have thought there's such a condition, though? How about this? Have you heard of crumpet feet?
Yeah, I heard of crumpet foot. My suggestion is don't Google that.
Now, we'll come back to that in a moment, but human feet are actually getting bigger. In the US, the best-selling shoe size is 8.5 for women and 10.5 for men. They're both up from a full size 30 years ago.
Wow.
But in the UK, people's foot sizes have gone up 2 sizes since the 70s, Jo.
It is amazing, and our shoe sizes do change throughout our lifetimes, especially for women who've had kids. Could be something to do with all that running around, but I will say when I was pregnant, my feet got bigger and it broke my heart because I was like, oh, my beautiful shoes that I couldn't fit anymore. Wedged my feet back in it, though, afterwards. What about you, Dus?
Well, I'm only a size 12, so...
You're only a size 12?
Well, given my height, I think it's not an overly... I've got a 17-year-old. I think he's up to size 16.
Wow.
So you can see that is enormous. He went past my shoe size a long time ago.
That must break the bank, keeping your sons in shoes. So it's time to head back up to the belly, though I can't stay away for too long because I'm obsessed with gut. This time it's Hines and GQ to prove that when it comes to good digestion, a probiotic-rich porridge is one of the best ways to love your guts.
Gerald, chia seeds are not only the inspiration for today's recipe, but I love them so much that I named my little lady Chia, my golden lab, after them. Because much like chia seeds, there's millions of Labradors around the world, but not one is the same.
Well, Hansi, she certainly is a beautiful animal, but do you think she'd like today's recipe?
Look, I gave her a blueberry the other day and she spat it right out in front of me, which actually works well because I want to keep this porridge all to myself.
Hansi, this is a healthy twist on an old recipe, but I want to talk about chia, the seeds, because they are small but a mighty healthy ingredient.
Well, I'm glad you clarified that we're talking about the seeds here, Gerald, and you're absolutely right. They're packed with antioxidants, omega-3 fatty acids, iron and calcium, but what a lot of people don't know is that they're actually a really good fibre-rich food, which is fantastic for your digestive system and bowel movements.
Hansi, I don't know if we should be talking about this while you're cooking, but did you know that chia seeds are classed as a natural laxative?
Nothing to be embarrassed about there, mate. We've all been there and we know how uncomfortable and awkward it can be, which is why I hope my recipe today can, let's just say, relieve some tension.
I think the more information we can help with today, the better, Luke. But in the herbal world, we turn to Cascara sagrada. Now, that's Spanish for sacred bark. It's been used traditionally in Western herbal medicine for many, many years, and it's got some important functions. It actually supports improved bowel waste elimination, but it also relieves abdominal bloating and flatulence.
Which, when you work in a small team like ours, is a massive win. Now, whilst we're on the topic of that bodily function, are there any natural solutions that may help us out?
Well, Heinzie, aloe vera we normally talk about in terms of soothing sunburn, but it also has some wonderfully soothing effects on our gastrointestinal tract. And as well, probiotics help restore beneficial bacteria levels, and all of these are going to help the bowel movement process. And they are available in supplement form.
Your poo facts are not crap indeed, GQ, much like my cooking. Check this out.
Well, Chia is lucky to have you, Heinzie, and that looks delicious.
The A to Z of Vitamins is brought to you by Go Healthy. For superior supplement for healthy energy and vitality, try New Zealand's #1 premium supplement, now available in Australia.
Still to come, we travel to far north Queensland for a lesson in sustainable living. That's next on The House of Wellness. Welcome back, Jo. We were talking about feet before the break. Here's something that might surprise you. Did you know that many butterflies taste with their feet?
I actually did know that, Das, and the receptors on those little feet are very similar to our taste buds, only about 200 times stronger. They actually stand on a surface, and if it tastes good, they'll lay their eggs there.
Well, Australia has around 400 species of butterflies, and you'll see many of them in Queensland, especially the tropical regions around Cairns.
In the mountain town of Kuranda, these magnificent creatures light up the sky and take refuge in the Australian Butterfly Sanctuary. It's a magnificent part of the world where two nature-focused havens are working hand in hand to help each other survive and thrive.
Okay, this is the poo sucker, as we call it, properly called the paddock vac, used for getting hold of the excreta from the animals.
Lift the curtain of any big tourist attraction and you're sure to be surprised by some of the inner workings. But a vacuum for animal excrement is one of the most unusual behind-the-scenes secrets around. However, this is poo with a purpose.
It all gets recycled back to the gardeners. It comes up as a really rich fertiliser, which will be mixed up with other garden waste and blended down into a good high nutrient value compost, which goes into the gardens. 2 alpine dingoes, Ned and Callie.
Murray Freeman has worked at Coranda's rainforest station in tropical North Queensland for nearly 40 years. He's one of their longest-serving employees. While he's filled the boots in every role from caretaker to tour guide, Murray's keenest interest is in keeping the park sustainable. And his passion is shared by the park's visitors.
We're operating in state forest and World Heritage listed forest and national park, so we have to look after that forest that we want to show the customers. But a lot of people do ask these days about the park's impact on the environment, our footprint, as you said. So people are much more aware these days than they were in the past. Good to see.
The park's environmental goal is to be as self-sufficient as possible. The whole park is run on solar power, food waste from the restaurant is composted along with the roo-poo, and sewage is treated and used to water the gardens.
Recycling that water, of course, means that the toilet waste and such is not going into the soil, a septic tank or any trench or anything like that. None of that's getting back into the environment and poisoning the environment around us.
Because caterpillars eat and eat a lot, their actual function is that they return nutrients to the soil through their droppings. So we make sure that all of that frass, which is caterpillar poo, it actually goes back into that mulch heap as well.
There's a similar story at Rainforest Station's neighbour, the Australian Butterfly Sanctuary.
We like to be ecologically friendly, so we want to make sure that we give back what we take from the environment. So we hand raise all of our caterpillars ourselves here. This requires growing an awful lot of food plant, and we focus on native species because that way we're going to be growing native plants. We actually have 2 acres under cultivation here at the sanctuary itself.
Robin Cruz has one of the best jobs in the country. She gets to be surrounded by beautiful butterflies every day in her career. But the biggest perk for both Murray and Robin is knowing that their workplace isn't harming the environment they care for.
To be sustainable, you can't just constantly take from the environment. You have to actually return.
Well, it's a peace of mind thing. It's good to know that we're doing our job, entertaining people, teaching, but not seriously affecting the environment. It's just a good feeling.
Well, we've chatted a lot today about the gut and digestion, Joe, and there's a bit of a tie-in with butterflies. Not only do they eat sewage, there is one theory that they're actually named after their poo. Dutch scientists noticed their droppings look like butter, hence the name butterfly.
And some of them have the most amazing colours. Cannot wait to see them now. The weather is starting to warm up a bit and we're allowed out. From nature's flying rainbows to finding the perfect colour and tone for your face, here's Jade with her expert take on picking the foundation that's best for you.
Foundation for me is the really holy grail product that you need in any beauty routine. As an artist, I take a lot of time into prepping my client's skin and using the right skincare before applying foundation. And what I love about Rimmel London Lasting Finish 25-hour foundation is that they've devised 14 shades. So I love that because I always give all my clients a little beauty tip. Invest into, depending on the weather, spray tans, you can mix and wear them accordingly. My top tips when applying foundation is to not miss some tricky areas. One being your ears, especially if your hair's up. You don't want any harsh lines or people to see your foundation lines before they see you. So don't forget to apply foundation all the way down your neck and your décolletage, depending on what you're wearing. The brand have taken into consideration amazing ingredients like vitamin E, hyaluronic acid, and SPF. So hyaluronic acid really is responsible for your skin being beautifully hydrated and nice and plump. And vitamin E is a great antioxidant for your skin. It just leaves it looking really fresh and smooth. Living in Australia, SPF is a very important step that needs to be part of your skin regime. However, having it incorporated into your foundation is a handy extra. It's non-transferable, humid-proof, and a long-lasting foundation that isn't matte or drying. So to get that youthful and flawless look, really ensure that your makeup is applied really even and to all areas of your face.
Welcome back, Joe. There's been a staggering drop, as you know, in the number of cases of flu this year. Incredibly, the decrease in Victoria alone is around 85%.
It's one of the small positives that's come out of the pandemic, Das, but one of the negatives we've had, at least in Melbourne, is the double whammy of lockdown and winter time, which has had an effect on our exposure to vitamin D. And as you know, Das, vitamin D is essential for healthy bones. It boosts our immune systems and cardiovascular health.
Studies in Melbourne of 40,000 patients revealed some not so good news, though, Joe. 3 out of 5 people have dangerously low levels of vitamin D. Here's the lead researcher, Monash University's Dr. Mastura Monif, to explain more about it.
Why is vitamin D so important for us?
As neurologists and as neuroscientists, the reason why we are interested in vitamin D is because of its implications in a number of neurological diseases, mainly multiple sclerosis, and that's the area of one of our focus areas, because it has been linked, vitamin D deficiency has been linked with increased risk of multiple sclerosis development. And if someone does have multiple sclerosis, there is an association between vitamin D deficiency and increased risk of or worsening progression. And that's just one condition, but there are many other conditions from a neurology perspective and also general health perspective. For example, individuals that are, in elderly population, vitamin D deficiency is associated with increased risk of falls, and in populations such as even psychiatric populations with schizophrenia, with depression, and it has a lot of other implications for general health, cardiovascular health, diabetes. It's even been associated with a number of cancers as well.
Your study was conducted over a large proportion of the population. What was your findings?
So basically what it showed was that in this patient population, there was a significant vitamin D deficiency. So up to 42% of the individuals were deficient in vitamin D. And that's, something that we do need to address as a healthcare body, but also as a population.
Are there indications that we might be vitamin D deficient that we can be aware of?
So the indications may not manifest initially as anything obvious, but if it's severe enough, the person may feel as though they have, bone aches and pains, muscle aches and pains. If it's that severe, sometimes they can even have fractures because it is associated with osteoporosis as well. But because of its link with many other conditions, systemic and also, neurological conditions, sometimes, there may be no manifestation and it's just the risk it's associated deficiencies associated with development of other conditions. So I think it's important that we are aware of the fact that are we deficient or are we sufficient in vitamin D.
How often should we get our vitamin D levels checked?
There's individuals that, would have risks for having vitamin D deficiency, and there are very clear algorithms and criteria that all local doctors have at their disposal as to who should have their vitamin D checked and when should they have it checked. The times which are, even our study showed that winter is a critical time, and despite supplementation, the majority of people were deficient in their vitamin D. So winter is a time to have it checked, but at the same time, if the person is worried or, if they're not maintaining their, oral supplement, or there's other reasons, or they have other signs and symptoms of vitamin D deficiency, I think it's absolutely important that they discuss it with their local doctor to have their levels checked. And it's a simple blood test.
Well, it's a tricky area to navigate, Joe. Australians are well educated about staying out of the sun to avoid skin cancers. We're always taught about the use of sunscreen, yet we do need to get more vitamin D. So it's a bit of a delicate situation.
It's true, but like everything, it's about balance. In summer, catch some rays mid-morning or mid-afternoon outside the peak UV times. And the advice also differs in each state and territory. It's recommended that people living in Darwin and Brisbane get a few minutes of sun most days all year round, but people living elsewhere should aim for 2 to 3 hours a week in the colder months and a few minutes most days in summer.
It always goes to the extreme, doesn't it? You've seen the playgrounds And the kids at school, even on those winter beautiful days when you can get a bit of sun, they've got to wear full brim hats and no access at all to get the vitamin D. So it's an interesting conversation, no doubt about that. Now, today's focus has been a lot on gut health, Jo, your great passion. More and more, we're hearing about the brain-gut connection, and it's giving us a whole new understanding of the link between digestion, health, mood, and even the way we think.
Our man Luke Hines is a huge believer in the relationship between emotions and gut health. Plus, he loves a challenge, so he's pulled in the big guns, a couple of naturopaths, for a gut smoothie off that he reckons he's got in the bag.
I got to say, Zoe, I got butterflies in my tummy because we are back in the kitchen embarking on another epic smoothie battle. Let's hear that bell. Oh, yeah, bring it on, baby.
Well, you know what? Look, that might not be butterflies. It could be all of that good bacteria singing out because it's super excited about the smoothies we're going to do today. What are these cool ingredients? They look delicious.
Well, Zoe, the hero of my smoothie is definitely this yoghurt because it's packed with good bacteria, which is often referred to as yoghurt cultures. Now, adding beneficial bacteria to your gut microbiome actually keeps it nice and healthy and looks after your digestion and your immunity.
So about 80% of the immune system's actually based in the gut. So, you know, if you don't have a healthy gut, then your immune system can't function properly. With digestive health, you know, it's important that our digestive health is working well right from our mouth all the way down. You know, our gut wants us to have lots of fresh vegetables and fruits, lots of nuts and seeds, legumes, all those sort of high fibre foods. I mean, obviously in addition to your other kind of proteins and things, and less sugars. And then the other thing that you can do too is to supplement your gut flora with good quality probiotics. And lots of people will use these and notice things like better bowel regularity, less bloating, less gas, more sort of digestive comfort.
I'm actually going to use the humble banana. This has got something called prebiotics in it. And what it does, it feeds all that bacteria in the gut. And the other beautiful thing is that bananas are easy for your body to digest, so good for the tummy.
Now, the saying goes, our gut acts as our second brain, so no better time to be making a smoothie that actually looks after it. Speaking of which, should we get blitzing so we can get it into our tummies? Oh, yeah. It's on. It's on, baby.
This is something that is important for every kind of age group, from young kids, you know, making sure that helps to reduce allergies and intolerances, and then to women and men in the older age groups as well. Gut function does start to kind of decline with age, and so a lot of the time our stomach acid may not be as strong or as produced as efficiently as what it was when we were younger. So if you can look after your sort of gut health, you can make the commitment to getting a little bit more fibre, drinking a little bit more water, maybe adding your probiotic supplement. Most importantly, really, so that we can feel well and, you know, function as healthily as possible.
I tell you what, I'm glad we're smoothie people because check this out. This is my choc chip thick shake.
That looks delicious.
Oof.
Oh, come on, that can't be good for you.
Did you personally pick this straw for me?
I absolutely did. But that's my zingy banana and raspberry smoothie. What do you think?
I tell you what, it's cutting a fine race like right here. Who do you reckon won?
You know what, Lukey, we are both winners when it comes to smoothies, but the biggest winner is obviously our gut.
I got to agree, Zoe. Until next time, cheers.
I guess being a part of a team that really is one team, being very united as a country. Morning coffee gets me going in the morning. Eat clean, train hard. Favourite athlete growing up, probably Leighton Hewitt. Ever since I was a little kid, I just wanted to go to the Olympics for judo. I can't cook anything. Eggs on toast, man. Bad habits. Not putting toilet seat down. Oh, rowing machine. I hate the rowing machine. Night person. Mornings aren't for me. Heights and the dark. I don't like heights or the dark. Probably like African safari in South Africa or something, I reckon. That's or to watch like a big UFC event in Vegas, I reckon. That is a good question. Judo.
Like all of our Olympic hopefuls, Nathan Katz's plans to compete in Tokyo 2020 have been put on hold. Can't wait to see he and his brother Josh in action next year. Joe?
We did that amazing story on The Boys earlier this year when Nathan spoke a lot about the mental pressure of competing in front of huge crowds. So, Das, you've played in front of 100,000 people at the MCG. What is it like handling that kind of scrutiny?
The energy you get from running out onto a stadium like that magnificent coliseum that is the MCG, and hearing that noise of the crowd, it's almost like something you can never replicate ever again. It was one of the most enjoyable things to get out there and experience just the energy that comes from a crowd like that.
Can you hear individuals yelling at you?
I got a bit of abuse from time to time, Joe, staggeringly from my own supporters, which was a little bit disturbing if you were deep in a forward pocket, often laced with a fair bit of humour.
I actually meant like yelling positive things, but if they were negative, that's not great. I'm sorry. Yeah. I hope I haven't triggered anything
there. Clearly I haven't
moved
on from it.
Well, the AFL Grand Final is less than 2 weeks away, being played at the Gabba for the first time in history. Can the Queenslanders match the mighty roar we hear each year in Melbourne? I can't wait.
Well, I must admit, I was a little sad to initially think the AFL Grand Final, the MCG's its home. It was played once at Waverley back in the early 90s. But now I'm excited to see it in Queensland, to see it at the Gabba, which is a beautiful stadium itself, played at night time. First time in recent history that's happened. So I think it's going to be enormous. And if the Brisbane Lions are good enough to get a home grand final in Brisbane, I think it'll be one of the great stories. Well, that's all we have time for today, Joe. You can find out more information on anything we've covered by logging on to our website. As always, go to thehouseofwellness.com.au. Tune into the House of Wellness radio show with our own Joe Stanley and GQ every Sunday, and to your podcast as well, Joe.
Absolutely. It's called Best of You in the House of Wellness, and we've been speaking about sports people and their mental health. So if you're interested in that, check out. It's all about that. It's at podcastoneaustralia.com.au.
And thanks as always to our great friends at Chemist Warehouse. Stay safe and stay well, and we'll see you next time.
Sharing time.